The suck zone. It's the point, basically, at which the twister sucks you up. Oh, hi, honey. Windy day out there. Seriously, it's really blowing today. Yeah, I'm watching Twister again. For the 100th time. It's not my fault that it's so good. It's literally my favorite movie of all time. It was my inspiration for becoming a meteorologist in the first place. Sure, it's got some of that 1990s cheesiness and there are some factual inaccuracies, but the vast majority of the movie is so good that it's easy to ignore what few flaws it has. It's so fun. Oh yeah, the last action scene is super unrealistic. You can't outrun a tornado, let alone an F5 with 300-mile-per-hour winds. That's ridiculous. There was a point where Bill and Joe were literally standing right next to it and they weren't getting blown away. They only survived because they're the main characters and have plot armor. I'm unbothered, though. It's so thrilling that I can ignore how silly it looks. Suspension of disbelief, you know? The story is great, the characters have rich personalities, the practical effects and CGI hold up well even today. For a movie released in 1996, it was way ahead of its time. It really feels like a movie that was made with a lot of passion. There's so much tornado action, too. This movie barely goes 10 minutes without one being on screen. It's so engaging. And the soundtrack is incredible as well. It has music like Humans Being and Respect the Wind by Van Halen, which just sends chills down my spine. I can't get enough of it. Of course I'm looking forward to the sequel. I just hope they don't screw it up. You never know with the modern movie industry. It could totally flop if mishandled. Though the trailer does look very promising. It's a shame that it won't have Bill Paxton. He's been dead for a while now. May the extreme rest in peace. There was something really sweet that happened after his death. A bunch of storm chasers aligned their vehicles to spell BP on satellite radar. It was awesome. Part of my fascination with tornadoes and just weather in general was growing up in the Northeast US. We don't really get tornadoes in the mountains. Not enough flat land or a sufficient amount of hot and cold air mixing. I was always intrigued and curious about the weather in other regions. Well, yeah, it's possible to get tornadoes in every state, but some are clearly more prone than others. Even Alaska, of all places, has received a few tornadoes, but they were all categorized as F-zeros and didn't last long at all. If you really want tornadoes, the Midwest is where it's at, especially Kansas and Oklahoma. I don't mind living in Tornado Alley. When I was old enough to travel alone, I willingly chose to move out here. And it's a good thing I did because I would have never met you otherwise. Hun, you're worth enduring every tornado we get graced by. Don't you worry one bit. In fact, if you were a tornado, you'd be an F6. I do know my Fujita scale. It's an intrinsic part of meteorology. I'm also grateful for my storm chasing team. They're super cool people. We're a good-spirited, high-energy group of weather enthusiasts who love documenting tornadoes. We don't fear the storm. We eagerly charge towards it. Of course it's dangerous. When you're a storm chaser, you have to know the risks. Many people have died doing this job, but it's usually due to recklessness. If you're smart and play it safe, you'll probably be fine. Well, no. Nothing is guaranteed. We may be able to predict the weather, but there's enough randomness to the point where we can never be entirely sure. If a tornado changes its course and heads right for you, you'd better take action immediately. And hope you're not in the wrong place at the wrong time. It isn't exactly rocket science to figure out how a tornado can kill you. There's a few ways. The most obvious way is getting sucked up into the vortex. You'll simply get thrown really high into the air and hit the ground too hard when you fall. You'd need to be incredibly lucky and land on something soft in order to survive. The second way is getting hit by debris. If a huge piece of infrastructure hits you at high speed, I doubt your soft, squishy human body would be able to take it. And the last way is hindered breathing ability. Depending on the wind speed, it'll either be really difficult or impossible to breathe in a tornado. Yeah, now you understand why Bill and Joe wouldn't have realistically survived the F5 at the end of the movie. Even though they were strapped down to those pipes, the tornado would have most likely killed them in a different way. But, plot armor. Speaking of F5s, did you know that the biggest one ever documented was the El Reno tornado of May 31st, 2013? This thing was a monster. To this day, it's the largest tornado ever recorded, at a jaw-dropping 2.6 miles wide. Even the F5 tornado in Twister wasn't that big. It was only 1 mile wide. Biggest doesn't necessarily mean strongest. It was certainly extremely powerful, but there have been worse. Sometimes it's hard to determine exactly what makes a tornado noteworthy. Do you judge its overall strength and wind speed? Do you judge it by the damage it does and the number of people it kills? It's not always crystal clear, but there are at least 3 contenders for the worst tornado in history. The first one is the Joplin, Missouri tornado, which happened on May 22, 2011. It damaged nearly 8,000 buildings. And of those, over 4,000 were completely destroyed. The damage, which included major facilities like one of Joplin's 2 hospitals, as well as much of its basic infrastructure, amounted to a grand total of $2.8 billion, making it the single costliest tornado in U.S. history. The second one is the Dulapur-Satoria tornado in Bangladesh, which happened on April 26, 1989. It killed approximately 1,300 people. That's a horrific number of lives lost to just one tornado. It's the stuff of nightmares. And the third one is the Tri-State tornado, which happened on March 18, 1925. It tore across southern Missouri, southern Illinois, and southwest Indiana. With its rapid movement, monstrous size, and long track, it took hundreds of lives and injured thousands. No matter which way you look at them, these tornadoes were downright demonic, and nothing has compared since. Even the El Reno tornado didn't take nearly as many lives despite being bigger. Size clearly isn't everything. There are many other historic tornadoes that are remembered today. These ones just stick out in my mind the most. If I don't stop myself, you'll hear me talk about tornadoes for the rest of the day. Wow, the wind is really picking up out there, and the sky is packed with dark clouds. I've been talking about tornadoes so much, I didn't even consider that we might get one today. The weather is ripe for it. Oh? Is my suspicion correct, perhaps? Yes! There's a tornado on the ground in our county right now. You know what that means. It's chasing time. Of course you can tag along. No one ever said you had to be an official part of the team. Guests are always welcome. To be honest, I'm surprised you didn't ask sooner. I'll grab my equipment. Put on something decent, all right? It's gonna be crazy out there. Do I sound like I'm from the Northeast US? How's my accent?